The text message arrived as Jennifer Morgan was preparing dinner. "I won't be home for dinner tonight. Business meeting." She looked at her phone screen, hands still dusted with flour, and felt that familiar tightening in her chest. It wasn't Michael's absence that hurt, it was the certainty of what those words truly meant. 3 years ago, ever since she'd accidentally discovered the messages on his laptop, Jennifer had learned to translate her husband's every lie with perfect precision. Business meeting meant Victoria Hayes, always Victoria. The apartment in Portland seemed to shrink every day. Jennifer looked around the modest kitchen, with its hand-painted cabinets and the linoleum floor she had installed herself to save money. Michael always complained. "My partners live in penthouses, and I live in this shoebox," he would say, as if Jennifer were responsible for their financial situation, as if she didn't work 10 hours a day as a librarian, as if she didn't pay half the bills, despite earning significantly less. Victoria Hayes didn't live in a shoebox. Victoria lived in a penthouse in the Pearl District, with a view of the Willamette River. Jennifer knew this because Victoria made sure to tag her location in every photo she posted on social media, photos that Michael liked without the slightest embarrassment. Her husband's mistress didn't hide. On the contrary, she flaunted the relationship like a trophy, and Jennifer herself as a bad joke. The phone vibrated again. Against her better judgment, Jennifer opened Instagram. Victoria's latest post was only 20 minutes old. A photo of her in a red dress that probably cost more than Jennifer's monthly rent, sitting in a restaurant Jennifer instantly recognized, Merchant's Table, where Michael had promised to take her for her birthday 2 months ago. He had canceled at the last minute. "Too much work," he had said. "Tuesday dinners are the best," read the caption, accompanied by a wine glass emoji. In the comments, one of Victoria's friends had written, "Watch out for the common wives. They get jealous." Victoria had replied with a string of laughing emojis. Common wife. That's what Victoria called her. Jennifer had discovered this 6 months ago, when an acquaintance, someone kind enough to think she deserved to know, had shown her a group chat where Victoria openly ridiculed Michael's common wife. She had recounted how Michael was ashamed of Jennifer, how he said he only stayed in the marriage out of pity, how he planned to file for divorce as soon as he secured the bank loan to expand his business. "She has no idea," Victoria had written, "that he's building our future while she reads little books at the library." Jennifer turned off the oven and put away the chicken she had prepared. She wasn't hungry anymore. She walked to the bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of the dresser, the one Michael never opened because it contained only women's things, as he would say with disdain. Beneath the socks and scarves, her fingers found the manila paper envelope. Inside were documents she hadn't looked at for months, but knew by heart. Bank statements, investment certificates, deeds, documents of an inheritance she had received 4 years prior, shortly before meeting Michael, and which she had kept an absolute secret ever since. Her grandfather, Arthur Westfield's death had been devastating. He had raised Jennifer after her parents died in a car accident when she was only 8. Arthur had been a discreet man who lived in a modest house in Eugene, drove the same car for 20 years, and taught Jennifer that people's true worth had nothing to do with what they owned. She had grown up thinking they were lower middle class. She only discovered the truth in his will. Arthur Westfield had been one of Microsoft's earliest investors. He had bought shares when no one else believed, sold at the right time, reinvested wisely, always out of the spotlight. When he died, he left Jennifer, his sole heir, a fortune valued at $87 million. The lawyer managing the inheritance, Patrick Chen, called quarterly to report on investments and dividends. Jennifer would take these calls when Michael was at work, speaking softly, writing everything down. She kept the money untouched, invested, growing silently while she lived off her librarian's salary. It was her grandfather's last request. Don't let money define who you are. Discover that for yourself first. But the secret had become a prison. How many times had Jennifer thought of simply telling Michael? How many humiliations had she swallowed that she could have avoided with a simple revelation? But something always held her back. Perhaps it was the memory of her grandfather asking her to wait, to discover people's true character before they knew of her wealth. Or perhaps it was the fear of confirming what she already suspected, that Michael had never loved her for who she was. The phone rang. Patrick Chen. "Jennifer, good evening. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Never a bother, Patrick. I have news about the Legacy Emmanuel Hospital Charity Gala. They're looking for major donors for this year's event. It's next Saturday. I thought it might be of interest to you." Jennifer sat on the bed. "Go on." "It's Portland's most important social event. The city's elite will be there. They're raising funds for the new pediatric wing. The minimum donation for entry is $10,000, but major donors, those who contribute over $1 million, receive special recognition. Head table, speech, the whole shebang." "Michael mentioned that gala," Jennifer said slowly. "He had talked about it the previous week, saying Victoria had secured invitations through a contact. He hadn't invited Jennifer. He hadn't even considered it a possibility." "His company is one of the smaller sponsors," Patrick confirmed. "He donated $25,000. His name is on the guest list." Jennifer was silent for a long moment, her mind working. Through the bedroom window, she could see the city lights beginning to flicker on in the twilight. Portland was beautiful at this time of day, when the golden light of late afternoon bathed the buildings and the bridges over the river. "Patrick, how long do you need to transfer $2 million to an accessible checking account?" And there was a surprised pause on the other end of the line. 48 hours? Maybe less? "Jennifer, may I ask what you're planning?" "I'm planning to stop being common," she replied, and for the first time in months, she felt something akin to a smile form on her lips. When she hung up the phone, Jennifer opened her closet. At the back, still in its dry cleaning bag, was the dress she had bought 2 years ago for their wedding anniversary. An expensive dress by her standards then, which Michael had criticized as being too pretentious for someone in your position. She had never worn it. Next to it, in a box she hadn't opened for years, were the jewels that had belonged to her grandmother. Arthur had kept everything: the diamond necklace, the sapphire earrings, the emerald bracelet, pieces worth a fortune, which she had hidden because Michael would mock them, because he would say they were fake, because he would make her feel small for owning something so valuable. Jennifer picked up the jewelry box and placed it on the bed. Under the lamplight, the stones shimmered with unfulfilled promises. She thought of her grandfather, his quiet wisdom, how he had always known that one day she would need more than money. She would need courage. The phone vibrated again. Another message from Michael. "Sleeping at the office. Too much work." Jennifer didn't reply. Instead, she dialed a different number, one Patrick had given her months ago, and she had never used. Portland's most exclusive luxury boutique, the one where Victoria bought her dresses, where common wives never entered. "Yes," she said when they answered. "I'd like to schedule a private consultation. I need a dress for the Legacy Emmanuel Charity Gala. Something unforgettable." The following morning brought unusual clarity. Jennifer woke before her alarm, a rarity for someone who had spent the last few months floating in a fog of resignation. Michael hadn't come home, but his absence didn't bring the usual weight. Instead, there was room to breathe, to think, to plan. She called the library, and for the first time in 6 years of impeccable work, feigned illness. Her supervisor's voice showed genuine concern, so different from the cold indifference Jennifer had received from Michael for so long. "Take care, dear. You never miss work. You must be really ill." If only she knew. Jennifer was sick, yes, but not in the way they imagined. Sick of being invisible. Sick of being treated as a mistake her husband made out of misguided compassion. At 9 in the morning, she stood at the entrance of Maison Étoile, the boutique where Victoria Hayes was a VIP client. The mirrored glass facade reflected a woman Jennifer barely recognized. Hair pulled back in a hasty bun, faded jeans, a canvas bag she'd carried for 5 years. A common wife, in every visible aspect. The door opened with a soft whisper. revealing an interior that looked more like an art gallery than a store. Sculptural mannequins displayed dresses that seemed like works by Renaissance artists reinterpreted in fabric and light. The air smelled of something expensive and indefinable. It wasn't common perfume, but something that whispered exclusivity. A woman approached, her heels clicking on the Italian marble. She was all studied elegance, from the precise cut of her black blazer to her impeccable makeup. Her eyes quickly scanned Jennifer, and there was that moment, that microsecond of judgment Jennifer knew so well. The expression that said, "You're in the wrong place. Can I help you?" The question sounded more like a polite challenge. "I have an appointment," Jennifer replied, keeping her voice steady. "I called last night. Jennifer Morgan." Something shifted in the woman's face, a mental check of some important list. "Ah, yes, Ms. Morgan. Of course." The tone transformed completely, like an actress changing masks. "I'm Dominique Laurent, senior consultant. It's a pleasure to have you here. Please, follow me." Dominique led her past the main racks, through a discreet door that led to a private salon. It was a space designed to make clients feel like royalty. A champagne velvet sofa, mirrors with gilded frames, lighting that made anyone look professionally photographed. A side table displayed chilled champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries. "I understand you need something for the Legacy Emmanuel Charity Gala," Dominique said, gesturing for Jennifer to sit. "It's one of the most prestigious events of the year. I'm sure we can find something perfect." Jennifer settled onto the sofa, feeling the absurd softness of the fabric. "I need to make an impression." "Naturally." Dominique picked up an iPad, her fingers gliding across the screen. "What budget are you considering?" "There is no budget." The words came out more easily than Jennifer expected. "I want the best you have, something no one will forget." Dominique's eyes lit up with the kind of interest only unlimited money awakens. "Perfect. Let me bring out some options." As Dominique disappeared among the racks of the private salon, Jennifer picked up her phone. An Instagram notification immediately caught her eye. Victoria had posted a new photo 20 minutes ago, a selfie in bed, white silk sheets strategically arranged, morning makeup perfectly intact. The caption read, "Waking up in a room with a river view never gets old." Jennifer recognized the room. It was Victoria's penthouse, but there was a new detail in the photo. On the nightstand in the background was Michael's tie, the navy blue one with subtle stripes that she herself had bought for him last Christmas. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. "Here we are," Dominique returned, pushing a rolling rack with 5 dresses that looked as if they had been woven by fashion gods. Each one was more stunning than the last. Flowing silks, intricate embroidery, cuts that defied physics. Jennifer stood up and ran her fingers over the first dress, a sapphire blue number with Swarovski crystals forming constellations along the bodice. It was beautiful, but it was something Victoria would wear. Obvious, showy in the wrong way. "That's a Valentino," Dominique explained, touching the fabric with reverence. "Fresh from the haute couture collection. Only 3 were made worldwide." Jennifer shook her head. "No, it's beautiful, but it's not me." They moved past the other dresses. An Oscar de la Renta in ruby red that looked like solidified rose petals. A black Ely Saab with lace appliques that created the illusion of wings. A golden Marchesa that caught the light like liquid honey. "No," Jennifer repeated for each one. She wasn't being difficult out of whimsy. She knew what she was looking for, even if she couldn't articulate it. She needed something that said, "You underestimated me." She needed power translated into fabric. Dominique frowned delicately. "Perhaps if you told me more about what you're looking for." "I want something that will make people stop and reevaluate every presumption they've ever made about me," Jennifer said, surprising herself with her own clarity. "I want to walk into that gala and make them wonder how they could have ignored me." A slow, genuinely appreciative smile spread across Dominique's face. "Wait here." She disappeared for longer this time, Jennifer used the opportunity to check her messages. One from Michael. Need to pick some things up at home this afternoon. Can you be out between 3 and 5? Not even a good morning. Not even an apology for his absence. Just a veiled order to absent herself from her own home. Jennifer typed a reply. I'll be out. Simple, emotionless. Two could play the game of indifference. I found it. Dominique's voice brought her back to the moment. She carried a single dress, still in its protective cover. This arrived yesterday. It was for a client in New York, but she canceled at the last minute. I believe it's exactly what you're looking for. When Dominique removed the cover, Jennifer forgot to breathe. The dress was emerald green, but not just any green. It was the color of ancient forests and deep seas, the kind of shade that seemed to shift under different angles of light. The design was deceptively simple. Off the shoulder, an elegant but not vulgar neckline, a silhouette that hugged the body before flowing into a skirt that brushed the floor like water. But it was the details that made it transcendent. Hand-embroidered silver thread adorned the bodice in patterns resembling vines, and tiny emeralds, real emeralds, Jennifer realized, were set along the lines, catching light like dew on spiderwebs at dawn. It's an exclusive Alexander McQueen, Dominique murmured, part of a collection of only 7 bespoke dresses created to celebrate the Maison's anniversary. This is number 3. How much? Jennifer asked, unable to tear her eyes from the dress. $150,000. Anyone else would have choked. Jennifer merely nodded. May I try it on? The dress fit her as if it had been created with her body in mind. When Jennifer looked at herself in the fitting room mirror, she saw a woman she didn't recognize, or perhaps recognized for the first time. The green made her eyes, which Michael had always called common brown, shine like amber under direct light. The cut accentuated curves she had spent years trying to hide beneath intentionally shapeless clothes. And the emeralds. The emeralds did something to her skin, made her appear illuminated from within. It's perfect, Dominique said behind her, and there was genuine admiration in her voice. Absolutely perfect. You look stunning. Jennifer turned, seeing her reflection from different angles. For the first time in years, she didn't see the common wife Victoria mocked. She saw power. She saw possibility. She saw revenge dressed in silk and precious stones. I'll take it, she said, and I'll need shoes, discreet jewelry, a clutch. I already have everything in mind, Dominique replied, her fingers already flying over the iPad. Let me take care of every detail. 2 hours later, Jennifer left Maison Étoile with a bag that contained more than a dress. It contained armor. The total on the invoice made Dominique blink, $220,000. But Jennifer swiped her card without hesitation. It was the card connected to the account Patrick Chen managed, a black piece of plastic she had never used before. Transaction approved, the machine sang softly. Of course it was. There were $87 million waiting to be spent. In the parking lot, sitting in her 10-year-old Honda Civic, Jennifer called Patrick. The gala is Saturday, she said when he answered. I need to make the donation today, $2 million. I want my name at the top of the patron list when everyone arrives. It's already arranged, Patrick replied, and there was an audible smile in his voice. Jennifer, your grandfather would be proud. She wasn't so sure. Grandfather Arthur had always preached humility, discretion. But he had also taught her that there was a time for silence and a time to be heard. And Jennifer had been silent for too long. The phone vibrated with another notification, a direct message on Instagram, from an account she didn't know. When she opened it, she found a short video, Michael and Victoria at some restaurant, him feeding her spoonfuls of dessert while she laughed. The accompanying message read, "Thought you should see this. I'm sorry." Someone else felt pity for her. Someone else thought she needed to be saved from her own ignorance. Jennifer deleted the message without replying. She didn't need pity. Not anymore. In 5 days, Michael and Victoria would learn a lesson that no amount of money or status could teach. Never underestimate someone you think is common. Because common people, when they finally decide to shine, can blind. The advertising agency occupied the 12th floor of a commercial building in downtown Portland, with windows offering views of Mount Hood when the sky was clear. Jennifer parked her Honda on the street, fed the parking meter, and observed her reflection in the building's glass. She still looked like herself, the same woman Michael found suitable to hide, whom Victoria considered joke material. But something had changed inside, a silent reconfiguration of priorities and perceptions. She wasn't there by chance. During her solitary breakfast, as she scrolled through phone notifications she'd been avoiding for days, Jennifer discovered that Marcus Webb's agency was recruiting a graphic designer. The vacancy had been posted 2 weeks ago, and something in the ad had called to her. Perhaps the tone, different from cold corporate descriptions. They were looking for someone with artistic vision and the courage to challenge conventions. Jennifer had no design background, but she had something she perceived to be more valuable, an urgent need to rebuild her identity. The receptionist, a young woman with shocking pink hair and delicate piercings, looked up from a tablet. "Can I help you?" "I came to inquire about the designer position," Jennifer said, feeling simultaneously courageous and ridiculous. "I know I don't have formal experience, but—" "Marcus," the receptionist called out unceremoniously, turning to an open door. "Someone's here about the position." A man appeared in the doorway, holding a mug that read, "Creativity requires coffee and chaos." Marcus Webb was different from what Jennifer expected. Perhaps in his 40s, with slightly graying hair at the temples, vintage-framed glasses, and a sweater that looked like it had seen better days. Nothing about him screamed executive. Everything about him whispered authenticity. Come in," he said, gesturing for Jennifer to follow him. "Sorry about the mess. We're in the middle of 3 simultaneous campaigns, and my organizational skills were the first casualty." His office confirmed the statement. Papers covered in sketches, fabric swatches, photographs, and post-its formed archaeological layers of creativity on every available surface. But there was order in the chaos. Each pile seemed to have a purpose. Each item was placed with intention. "So," Marcus said, sitting in a swivel chair that groaned in protest, "tell me about yourself. And please, skip the standard interview script. I've heard 'I'm a team player' so many times the phrase has lost all meaning." Jennifer blinked, disarmed by his direct honesty. "I'm a librarian. I don't have a design background. I probably came here on impulse. Because I bought a $150,000 dress yesterday and realized I've spent the last few years living a life that doesn't belong to me." Silence. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, then began to laugh. Not a mocking laugh, but genuine and warm. "That's the best pitch I've ever heard. Tell me more about the dress." And Jennifer told him. Not everything. Not about Michael or Victoria or the secret inheritance, but about feeling invisible, about deciding to change, about wanting to create something that mattered. As she spoke, Marcus listened with rare attention, asking occasional questions that showed genuine interest. "Look," he said when she finished, "I can't hire you as a graphic designer. It would be irresponsible of me and unfair to you. But I have a different proposal." He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with something akin to conspiracy. "I need someone to manage the organizational side of this mess. Someone who understands systems, who knows how to catalog and structure, but who also understands narrative. Librarians are masters of both. Interested?" Jennifer considered. It wasn't what she had come for, but perhaps it was exactly what she needed. What would the hours be? "Flexible. This isn't a punch clock company. Deliver the work, manage your time as you like. Some days you might be here 10 hours, others 3. I trust adults to manage their own lives." It was too tempting, too dangerous. A job that would give her freedom, purpose, distance from a library where every book reminded her of the time she had wasted. "When can I start?" "Monday," Marcus suggested. "That gives you the weekend to organize what you need, and to wear that expensive dress. I imagine there's an event involved." Jennifer smiled, a real smile that felt strange on her unaccustomed muscles. "Yes, there is. A charity gala." "Perfect. Go, kill it. Come back Monday, ready to dive into this wonderful chaos." Marcus stood, extending his hand. "Welcome to the team, Jennifer. I have a feeling you're going to shake things up around here." As she drove back home, Jennifer felt something unfamiliar expanding in her chest. Hope, perhaps, or the embryonic version of self-worth. The phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. Patrick Chen. "Jennifer." "The donation has been processed. $2 million has been transferred to the Legacy Emmanuel Pediatric Wing Fund. You are officially the largest individual donor for this year's gala. In fact," he paused, and she could hear the smile in his voice, "you are the largest donor they've ever had in the event's 23-year history." "Do they know who I am?" Jennifer asked, stopping at a red light. "They do now. The hospital director, Dr. Caroline Reeves, called personally. She's eager to meet you on Saturday. You'll have the head table, alongside the board members, and they want you to say a few words during dinner." Initial panic gave way to determination. "How many words?" "A few minutes. Nothing formal, just thanks. Maybe mention why the cause is important to you." Jennifer thought about it as the light changed and she accelerated. Why did the cause matter? Sick children, families in crisis, the kind of vulnerability she herself had known when her parents died. "I can do this," she said aloud, convincing herself as much as Patrick. "I know you can. There's one more thing. Some journalists will be covering the event. Local publications. Some lifestyle magazines. Your donation will be news. Are you prepared for that?" Was she? Jennifer imagined Michael reading about her in Portland Monthly, Victoria discovering via Instagram that the common wife was actually the wealthiest woman in the room. The satisfaction was toxic and delicious in equal measure. "I'm prepared." When she arrived home, there was a note from Michael on the kitchen table. "Picked up my stuff. Staying at the office for the next few days. Big project. Don't wait up for me." His handwriting was hasty, careless, as if she didn't even deserve a decent goodbye. Jennifer crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. Then, systematically, she began to remove traces of Michael from the apartment. Not everything. She wasn't ready for that final declaration yet, but enough to breathe. The smelly jacket he left on the sofa, the muddy sneakers in the hallway, the pile of business magazines he never read but insisted on keeping to impress visitors. Everything went into a box in the hallway closet. The apartment seemed larger without his belongings scattered like territorial markings. Jennifer made tea, sat by the window, and watched the sun set over Portland. Her phone showed 3 unread messages from Michael. Complaints about shirts he couldn't find. Questions about where his laptop charger was. A criticism about her moving things around. She didn't reply to any. Instead, she opened a file on her computer that she had started months ago and never finished. A draft letter explaining why she wanted a divorce. At the time, it had seemed impossible, too final, too honest, too frightening. Now the words flowed with surprising ease. "Michael," she typed, "this marriage ended a long time ago. We both know it. The difference is I'm finally ready to admit it." She deleted "dear." There was no affection left to soften the truth. As she wrote, her phone lit up with a new notification. Victoria on an Instagram Live, showing off a dazzling dress. "This is my look for the Legacy Emmanuel Gala on Saturday," she announced to hundreds of viewers. Michael got tickets through his contacts. It's going to be the perfect night. The camera briefly showed Michael in the background, fiddling with his phone, oblivious to his mistress's performance. Jennifer watched for 30 seconds before closing the app. Victoria could have the beautiful dress, the eager followers, even Michael for now. But on Saturday, She would have to face a truth her inflated ego had never considered possible, that some people keep aces up their sleeves not out of cunning, but because they have been underestimated for so long that revenge becomes an art. The divorce letter took 2 hours to complete. Jennifer saved it, printed it, and placed it in an envelope. She wouldn't send it yet. There was timing to consider, impact to maximize. But it was ready, just like her. That night, for the first time in 3 years, Jennifer slept soundly, without waking to every notification from Michael's phone, without wondering where he was or with whom. The Alexander McQueen dress hung in the closet, like an emerald green promise. In 4 days, everything would change. In 4 days, the common wife would become unforgettable. Wednesday dawned with a fine rain, the kind that transformed Portland into a blurred watercolor of grays and greens. Jennifer woke with the strange sensation of being in a body that wasn't entirely her own, or perhaps it was exactly the opposite. Perhaps she was inhabiting her own skin for the first time in years. The empty apartment echoed with silence, but not the oppressive kind that usually suffocated her. It was a clean silence, full of possibilities. The phone showed 2 unread messages from Michael, both sent after midnight. "I need to talk to you about something important, and call me when you wake up." Jennifer ignored them as she made coffee, savoring the small rebellion of not being instantly available. She knew what he wanted. Always the same thing when he decided he needed her. Some domestic favor, some task Victoria wouldn't deign to do, some reminder that Jennifer still served a purpose in his compartmentalized life. But today there was something more urgent to attend to. Patrick Chen had scheduled a meeting with representatives from Legacy Emmanuel Hospital, and Jennifer needed to be prepared. Not just prepared, she needed to be impeccable. The invisible librarian needed to start disappearing, replaced by someone who commanded respect through more than just money. The meeting was scheduled for 10 in the morning at the hospital itself, an impressive complex that occupied several blocks in North Portland. Jennifer arrived 15 minutes early, driving not her familiar Honda but the Mercedes S-Class that Patrick had suggested she buy the day before. The car was discreet in its elegance, metallic silver, cream leather interior, technology that seemed to have come from the future. She had felt guilty about the $120,000 spent, until Patrick gently reminded her that her assets grew by more than that each month, just from interest. The receptionist directed her to the 10th floor, where the administrative wing was located. The elevator doors opened into a hallway with walls decorated by photographs of children, patients who had been treated there, their smiles capturing moments of triumph against diseases that should have won. Jennifer felt a tightening in her chest. This wasn't just revenge against Michael and Victoria. $2 million would make a real difference in real lives. "Mrs. Morgan?" A woman approached, hand extended, her smile professional but warm. "I'm Caroline Reeves, Medical Director of Legacy Emmanuel. It's an honor to meet you in person." Dr. Reeves had that kind of presence that inspired immediate trust. Gray hair pulled back in a practical bun, eyes that seemed to have seen everything but retained compassion, a posture that communicated authority without arrogance. Jennifer shook her hand, feeling calluses that indicated years of real medical work before the transition to administration. "The pleasure is mine, Doctor. Thank you for having me. Please call me Caroline." She gestured towards a conference room with a view of the city. "I'd like to show you exactly where your generosity is going." Inside the room, an elaborate model occupied the central table. It was the design for the new pediatric wing, 3 floors of thoughtful design where every detail seemed conceived to comfort frightened children and desperate parents. Large windows for natural light, soft yet cheerful colors, integrated spaces where families could remain close during treatments. "We're building 10 state-of-the-art isolation rooms," Caroline explained, pointing to specific sections of the model. "For children with compromised immune systems. Your donation completely covers this wing. You are literally saving lives that haven't even been born yet." Jennifer touched the miniature of one of the rooms, imagining a child there, a mother sleeping in the armchair beside them, a father bringing bad coffee from the cafeteria at 3 in the morning. She knew this scenario from different angles, remembering when her grandfather spent his last days in a similar hospital, she keeping vigil even when nurses insisted she go home to rest. "When my parents died," Jennifer heard herself say. Surprised by her own vulnerability, the hospital did everything medically right, but it lacked humanity in the spaces. Everything was too clinical, too frightening for an 8-year-old trying to understand why her world had just fallen apart. Caroline nodded with an understanding that went beyond professional. That's exactly why this project matters so much. Medical trauma is sometimes inevitable, but environmental trauma doesn't have to be. They spent the next hour discussing details, construction timeline, necessary equipment, staff training. Jennifer found she had opinions on things she'd never known mattered. Wall colors, furniture arrangement, even the type of art that would decorate hallways. Caroline didn't just listen, she took notes, considered and implemented suggestions when they made sense. "There's one more thing," Caroline said as they prepared to conclude the meeting. "Saturday's gala will be live-streamed on our social media. You'll become the public face of this campaign, Jennifer. Are you comfortable with that?" The question was reasonable, but the answer was complicated. Comfortable? Not exactly. But ready? Absolutely. "I will be," Jennifer replied, with a conviction she was learning to feel. When she left the hospital, it was almost noon. Her phone showed 7 missed calls from Michael and 3 increasingly irritated messages. "Where are you? Why aren't you answering? This is ridiculous, Jennifer. Call me now." The possessive tone, as if she were properly misbehaving. She called him back while driving, activating the speakerphone. Finally, Michael answered without a greeting. "I've been trying to reach you for hours." "I was busy," Jennifer replied, keeping her voice neutral. "What do you need?" "Victoria and I are traveling to Seattle this weekend. There's an event she wants to go to. I need you to sign some documents beforehand." Jennifer almost asked what documents, but realized it didn't matter. Michael always had documents, tax declarations that included her without consulting her, lease renewals he decided unilaterally, endless paperwork from his business world where she was convenient but irrelevant. "What event in Seattle?" she asked instead, morbid curiosity taking over. "Just an event." His voice had that evasive quality Jennifer knew well. He was lying, but this time she didn't care to find out about what. "Michael, didn't you mention the Legacy Emmanuel Charity Gala on Saturday? I thought you were going there." A pause, too long to be natural. "Oh, that. Yes, we'll go to that before Seattle. Victoria managed to get tickets." Managed? Jennifer couldn't suppress a smile. "Through what contacts?" "I don't know the details, Jennifer." "Why the interrogation?" "Because in 48 hours you'll discover exactly how your girlfriend got tickets, by buying them like any other regular guest, while your wife, whom you despise, will be the guest of honor." But aloud, she merely said, "Curiosity. I have to go, Michael. I'm driving. The documents. Leave them on the table. I'll sign them when I can." She hung up before he could protest, feeling a dangerous lightness. Each small act of defiance became easier, like a muscle gaining strength with exercise. The rest of the afternoon was devoted to preparations that would have seemed impossible before. Jennifer visited a salon Patrick had recommended, where a hairdresser named Sienna studied her brown hair with the intensity of a surgeon planning a delicate procedure. "We have good bones to work with," Sienna announced, touching Jennifer's face with professional fingers. "And your skin is amazing. Have you been using something special?" "Library," Jennifer replied, and Sienna laughed as if it were an intentional joke. They scheduled a full session for Friday. Hair, makeup, nails, everything that needs polishing, in Sienna's words. It would cost $3,000, a sum that would have made Jennifer cancel everything a week ago. Now, she simply swiped her card and booked it. On the way home, she stopped at a jewelry store. Not the obvious mall store where she and Michael had bought their simple wedding bands, but a discreet boutique recommended by Dominique from Maison Étoile. The owner, an older man who introduced himself as Raphael, examined Jennifer's grandmother's jewelry with reverence. "These are extraordinary pieces," he murmured, turning the diamond necklace under specialized light. "Art Deco, 1920s. Impeccable work. They are easily worth $400,000 on the current market." Jennifer watched the stones capture light, creating miniature rainbows on the walls. Her grandmother had worn these jewels to similar galas in a different era when the world was simultaneously simpler and more complicated. "Can you clean them? Bring them back to their original glory?" "It will be my honor," Raphael replied. "When do you need them?" "Friday afternoon." He nodded, as if impossible requests were routine. "They'll be ready." When Jennifer finally got home, the apartment was exactly as she had left it, empty of Michael, full of potential. The documents he had mentioned were on the table, stapled and flagged with yellow post-its marking where to sign. She examined them this time instead of signing blindly. They were forms for a business loan, using their apartment as partial collateral. Michael wanted to expand his business, needed capital, and had naturally assumed Jennifer would sign anything he put in front of her. In the past, she would have signed. Today, she took the papers, folded them carefully, and placed them in a kitchen drawer. It wasn't a refusal, not yet. It was an intentional postponement, a demonstration that her time and approval were no longer automatic. The phone rang again. This time it was Marcus Webb from the agency. "Jennifer, I hope I'm not disturbing you. I just wanted to confirm you're still interested in starting on Monday. I'm excited, but I'd understand if you'd changed your mind." The genuine concern in his voice was so different from Michael's demanding tone. "I haven't changed my mind," Jennifer assured him. "I'll be there Monday morning, ready to dive into the wonderful chaos." Marcus laughed. "Excellent. And Jennifer, whatever you're planning for Saturday, completely nail it." After hanging up, Jennifer poured herself some wine she had bought on the way home, not the cheap kind she used to buy, but a bottle the sommelier had promised would be transformative. She sat by the window, watching Portland light up against the rainy twilight, and allowed herself to imagine Saturday. Michael and Victoria arriving confidently, she in her expensive but predictable dress, he uncomfortable in a rented tuxedo because he'd never owned one. Finding their seats, good seats, certainly, but not the best. Flipping through the program and seeing Jennifer's name listed as principal patron. The initial confusion, the certainty that it must be another Jennifer Morgan. Then she would enter, emerald green and diamonds, impossible not to see, impossible to ignore. And when director Caroline Reeves called Jennifer to the stage to thank her for her unprecedented generosity, Michael would have to watch his ordinary wife receive a standing ovation from Portland's elite. The thought should bring pure satisfaction, and it did. But there was something more too, something Jennifer hadn't expected. Sadness for the wasted time, for the version of herself she had allowed to be diminished for so long. Revenge was sweet, yes, but liberation would be sweeter still. Friday arrived enveloped in a morning mist, thick as a secret about to be revealed. Jennifer woke to a message from Patrick Chen. "Everything confirmed. You're the star tomorrow." Star. The word seemed to belong to someone else, to some version of herself she was still learning to inhabit. The day would be long by design. At 9 in the morning, her final meeting with Caroline Reeves at the hospital was scheduled, where they would review the event's final details. In the afternoon, the physical transformation would begin at Sienna's salon. Between these milestones, Jennifer had a task she had been postponing, confronting the reality of her marriage not just with clarity, but with action. The apartment was too quiet as she prepared to leave. Michael hadn't appeared in 3 days, his absences becoming so common that his presence would now be the anomaly. His clothes still occupied half the closet, his shaving products lined up in the bathroom like soldiers awaiting orders that would never come. Evidence of a shared life that had long ceased to be true. Jennifer picked up the envelope with the divorce letter she had drafted days ago. She reread the words once more, looking for hesitation she didn't find. This marriage ended a long time ago. We both know it. Simple, direct, true. But the timing needed to be perfect. Not before the gala. She wouldn't give him an excuse to miss it. To evade the moment he would discover who she truly was. No. The letter would be delivered later, when the humiliation was still fresh, when every word would carry the weight of everything he had lost by underestimating her. At the hospital, Caroline greeted her with a hug that surprised both with its spontaneity. "Sorry," the doctor said, stepping back. "I'm not usually so effusive with donors, but there's something about you, Jennifer. You understand why this matters, in a way that goes beyond philanthropy." They walked through the existing pediatric wing, where children in various stages of treatment played in a colorful but worn common room. A girl, perhaps 6 years old, bald from chemotherapy, but smiling with fierce joy, showed a drawing to a patient nurse. Jennifer felt a tightening in her chest. Not pity, but recognition. She knew that resilience, that childlike ability to find light in darkness. "Her name is Lily," Caroline said softly. "Leukemia. She's responding well to treatment, but needs a better isolation environment. The new wing will make the difference between infections that can cure her and infections that can kill her." Jennifer watched Lily laugh at something the nurse said, and knew with absolute certainty that the $2 million was the best decision she had ever made. Revenge against Michael and Victoria would be a delicious but secondary bonus. This child, this future, was what truly mattered. "When I speak tomorrow," Jennifer said, "can I mention Lily?" Caroline blinked in surprise. "Normally we don't identify specific patients, but with the family's permission. Let me check." She disappeared for a few minutes, returning with a smile. Lily's mother would be honored. She said she wants the world to know that children like Lily deserve the best we can offer. They reviewed the logistical details of the gala. Jennifer would be called to the stage after the main dinner, before the charity auction. Her speech should last 3 to 5 minutes. Photographers would capture the moment. Reporters would ask questions afterward. It was exposure that would have terrified her before. Now she felt only determination, sharp as a blade. When she left the hospital, it was almost noon. Jennifer drove to a less familiar area of Portland, a neighborhood where converted industrial buildings housed artists' studios and independent cafes. She parked in front of one that Patrick had casually mentioned, a discreet place where people who needed privacy could talk undisturbed. Inside, she ordered coffee and settled at a corner table. 20 minutes later, the lawyer Patrick had recommended arrived, a woman in her 40s named Diana Frost, with a reputation for being relentless in divorces involving significant assets. "Mrs. Morgan," Diana said, shaking her hand with a firmness that communicated competence. "Patrick gave me the general context. Let's talk about your options." Jennifer outlined the situation with clarity she had been practicing. 5-year marriage. Husband's open infidelity. No children. Assets Michael believed to be modest, but which actually included a fortune of $87 million that he was completely unaware of. Diana listened without interrupting, making occasional notes. When Jennifer finished, the lawyer leaned back, a thoughtful expression on her face. "This is an unusual case. Normally I see wives trying to claim part of the husband's fortune, not the other way around. Are you aware that Michael technically has a right to half of any assets acquired during the marriage?" "The inheritance was received before the marriage," Jennifer explained, "and kept completely separate. He never knew, never had access, never benefited." "That changes everything." Diana smiled, and there was something predatory in that smile that Jennifer appreciated. "Oregon is an equitable property state, not community property. Inheritances kept separate remain individual property. He has no legal claim to any of your money." Relief and something akin to triumph washed over Jennifer. "And the apartment? It's in both our names, but I bought it with my salary before we got married. Documentation will be key, But if you can prove the source of the funds, you have a strong argument. Diana made more notes. When do you want to start the process? Monday, Jennifer replied without hesitation. But I don't want him to know until he's officially served. Can you make that happen? I can. Diana closed her notebook, her sharp eyes studying Jennifer. May I ask what changed? You've endured his infidelity for years, according to Patrick. Why now? Jennifer thought about the question, searching for a true answer. I bought a $150,000 dress and realized I'd spent years making myself small to fit my husband's vision of me. I'm tired of being invisible. Best reason I've ever heard. Diana stood up, extending a business card. Call me Monday morning. We'll start the process immediately. And Jennifer, wear the dress. Visual reminders of our own worth are powerful. After Diana left, Jennifer remained in the cafe, savoring not the average coffee, but the feeling of control. Every piece was falling into place. Every decision was taking her further from the woman she had allowed herself to be called ordinary. Her phone vibrated. A message from Michael. We need to talk. It's important. Jennifer studied the words, looking for genuine urgency she didn't find. With Michael, everything was important when he needed something, irrelevant when she was the one needing. She typed a brief reply. I'm busy today. We'll talk Monday. Monday, when everything would officially change, when divorce papers would be filed, when a new job would start, when the version of her that existed only for Michael's convenience would finally die. But first, there was tomorrow. There was the gala. There was the moment Michael and Victoria would discover that the ordinary wife was, in fact, extraordinary. At 2 p.m, Jennifer arrived at Sienna's salon. The space was a transformation studio disguised as a business, lights that made everyone look like movie stars, chairs as comfortable as thrones, an atmosphere that whispered that miracles happened there daily. Ready to become a work of art? Sienna asked, gesturing to a central chair as if it were an altar. Jennifer sat down, observing her reflection. Brown hair with no particular style, a face clean of makeup, comfortable but personality-less clothes. The woman in the mirror was someone who had learned not to attract attention, who had developed invisibility as a survival mechanism. Tomorrow, that woman needed to disappear. I'm ready, she said. The next 4 hours were a journey of meticulous transformation. Sienna worked with a surgeon's focus, explaining each choice. Her hair would remain long but would gain layers that created movement. The color would receive dimension, caramel and golden tones woven through the brown, capturing light in a way that seemed natural but was pure art. You have classic features, and Sienna observed as she applied a treatment that made Jennifer's hair shine like never before. Good bones, expressive eyes. Why have you been hiding this? Because no one was looking, Jennifer replied, and the truth of that statement stung. Tomorrow, Sienna promised, everyone will look. While her hair processed under careful heat, a nail specialist named May worked on Jennifer's hands. Her nails, kept short and unadorned for years of library work, were gently lengthened and painted in a sophisticated nude shade that would complement anything, but especially the emerald green. Hands tell stories, May said, massaging luxurious cream into Jennifer's skin. Your hands say you work hard, that you care for things. Tomorrow they'll say you also deserve to be cared for. When her hair was finally dried and styled, Jennifer barely recognized the woman in the mirror. The soft waves framed her face in a way that made her eyes appear larger, more luminous. The golden tones captured light, made her hair seem alive in a new way. Now for makeup, Sienna announced, and another specialist named Grace took over. I'll teach you how to do this yourself, but tomorrow, come back an hour before the event. I'll do it personally. Grace worked with impressive lightness, building makeup in layers that looked like no makeup at all. Foundation that evened skin tone, but left natural texture visible. Blush that mimicked a genuine flush. Eyeshadow in earthy tones that made Jennifer's brown eyes glow like amber under the sun. "You're lucky," Grace commented, applying mascara to Jennifer's lashes. "Your features are naturally balanced. I don't need to correct anything, just enhance." When they finished, it was almost 7 in the evening. Jennifer looked at her reflection and saw a polished version of herself, yet recognizable. It wasn't a radical transformation that screamed artifice. It was a careful unveiling of beauty that had always been there, merely obscured by years of self-effacement. "Beautiful," Sienna declared with the satisfaction of an artist admiring a completed work. "Tomorrow night, when we add the dress and the jewels, you're going to stop hearts." On the way home, Jennifer stopped by Raphael's jewelry store. He greeted her with reverence, presenting a velvet box that contained her grandmother's jewels. Cleaned and restored, they shone with breathtaking intensity. The diamond necklace seemed to capture all available light and multiply it. The sapphire earrings glittered deep like the midnight ocean. The emerald bracelet would perfectly complement the dress. "Your grandmother had impeccable taste," Raphael said. "And you've inherited not only her jewels but also her elegance. She would be proud." Jennifer hoped so. She hoped that her grandfather Arthur, wherever he was, would understand that she was finally using his inheritance not just to buy things, but to reclaim the dignity that others had tried to take from her. When she arrived home, there was a note from Michael on the door. "I need to talk to you before the gala tomorrow. It's about Victoria and me. Call me." Jennifer crumpled the paper without reading to the end. It didn't matter what he had to say. Nothing Michael thought or wanted mattered anymore. She hung the Alexander McQueen dress in the closet, placed the jewelry box beside it, arranged the Manolo Blahnik shoes that cost more than a month's rent. Tomorrow, all these pieces would unite to create armor. Tomorrow, the ordinary wife would become unforgettable. Her phone showed 17 unread notifications, messages from Michael demanding attention, posts from Victoria flaunting about the gala, worried friends because Jennifer had been silent on social media. She ignored them all, choosing instead to take a long bath, put on comfortable pajamas, and prepare expensive tea she had bought on impulse. In bed, with the city lighting up outside, Jennifer allowed herself to anticipate not revenge, though that would be sweet, but liberation. Tomorrow wasn't just about humiliating Michael and Victoria. It was about Jennifer Morgan finally, completely, refusing to be ordinary. Saturday dawned with a clear sky over Portland, a rare gift in November when rain usually dominated. Jennifer woke at 6, her body vibrating with energy that was partly nervousness, partly pure anticipation. The emerald green dress hung in the closet like a promise about to be fulfilled. Her grandmother's jewels awaited in their velvet box, and the woman in the mirror was no longer the one Michael had learned to ignore. She made coffee, sat by the window, and watched the city awaken. Her phone showed a message from Michael sent at 3 in the morning. "We need to talk before the gala. It's about us." Jennifer deleted it without replying. There was no more us to discuss, only the remnants of a marriage she planned to bury as soon as Monday arrived. At 9, Patrick Chen called with the final details. "Caroline confirmed your arrival for 7. You'll enter after the board members but before the regular guests. There will be photographers, Jennifer. Prepare to be seen." To be seen. For years, Jennifer had cultivated invisibility as a defense. Today, she would choose the opposite with deliberate intention. "I'm ready, Patrick. Your grandfather would be proud," he said, his voice laden with emotion he rarely showed, not just for the money, but for the courage. "Arthur always knew you were special." After hanging up, Jennifer walked around the apartment, memorizing details. This small space had been her refuge and her prison, a place where she had hidden and where she had finally decided to stop hiding. Tomorrow, she would start looking for a new place to live, something that would be entirely hers, without the ghosts of a failed marriage haunting every room. At 11, she was at Sienna's salon. The hairdresser greeted her with an effusive hug. "Final transformation day. Sit down, dear. Let's make magic." The process was meditative in its precision. Each strand of hair received individual attention. Waves built layer by layer until they created a cascade that looked simultaneously natural and impossible. Grace applied makeup with an artist's touch, enhancing features Jennifer had spent years trying to minimize. Luminous foundation that made her skin glow, eyes defined with eyeshadow in bronze and gold tones that made the brown look precious, lips in a rosy nude that promised effortless elegance. "Perfect," Sienna declared at 2 p.m, spinning the chair so Jennifer could see the complete result. The woman in the mirror was familiar, yet transformed, like a sculpture finally revealed after years hidden beneath rough marble. Jennifer drove back home, careful not to mess up her hairstyle. The apartment was exactly as she had left it, silent and waiting. She ate lightly, something Patrick had suggested to avoid discomfort during a long event. At 4, she began the process of getting dressed. First, the expensive lingerie she had bought specifically to create smooth lines under the dress. Then, the sheer, mist-like stockings. The Manolo Blahnik shoes, with emeralds set in the heels, perfectly matching the dress. Then, with reverent care, the Alexander McQueen. The fabric slid over her skin like green water, fitting with impossible precision. Jennifer closed the side zipper, feeling the dress hug every curve, enhancing a form she had learned to consider ordinary. When she turned to the mirror, the breath fled from her lungs. She was stunning. There was no other word. The emerald green made her skin glow. The silver embroidery caught light in hypnotic patterns, and the emeralds set in the fabric conversed with the stones of her grandmother's bracelet. Jennifer put on the diamond necklace, the sapphire earrings, and watched the transformation complete itself. This was not an ordinary wife. This was a woman who commanded attention, respect, admiration. Her phone rang. Marcus Webb, his voice carrying genuine enthusiasm. "Jennifer, I know you're getting ready, but I had to call. Good luck tonight. Show them who you really are." "Thank you, Marcus." His friendship, so new yet already valuable, warmed something in her chest. "I'll see you Monday." At 6:30, Patrick's car arrived, not the Mercedes she had bought, but a black limousine he had insisted on providing. "Arrivals matter," he had explained. "You need to make an entrance that matches your donation." The driver, an older man with a military bearing, held the door with reverence. "Mrs. Morgan, it's an honor." A treatment that would have made Jennifer laugh a week ago now seemed appropriate, deserved. The drive to the Benson Hotel, where the gala would take place, took 20 minutes through Portland lit by nightlights. Jennifer watched the city pass, her heart beating a steady but accelerated rhythm. Soon, everything would change. Soon, Michael would see. Soon, Victoria would understand. The Benson was an architectural jewel from the early 20th century, restored to a glory that blended old-world elegance with modern luxury. A red carpet stretched from the street to the main entrance, where photographers were already gathering to capture important arrivals. Patrick met her in the lobby, impeccable in a tuxedo, a proud smile lighting up his usually serious face. "Jennifer," he said simply, but there were volumes in the way he pronounced her name. "You are magnificent." "Thank you for everything, Patrick, for believing I was ready." "You were always ready. You just needed to realize it yourself." Caroline Reeves appeared, stunning in a navy blue dress, accompanied by a distinguished man she introduced as Preston Hart, chairman of the hospital board. "Mrs. Morgan," Preston said, taking her hand with old-fashioned gentleness, "your generosity will transform lives. It's a privilege to have you with us tonight." They guided her through a side corridor, avoiding the main entrance where regular guests were beginning to arrive. "We want your entrance to be impactful," Caroline explained. "You'll enter the ballroom after everyone is seated, but before dinner begins. It will be impossible not to notice." Through the ornate ballroom doors, Jennifer could hear the murmur of hundreds of conversations, laughter, the soft touch of string quartet music. Her stomach tightened, but not from fear. It was anticipation, sharp as a blade. Patrick gently touched her arm. Michael and Victoria arrived 10 minutes ago. They're seated at table 17, middle section. Good seats, but not special. Jennifer nodded, absorbing the information. Table 17, middle section. Seats for smaller donors, for people who mattered but weren't essential. While she would be seated at table 1, beside Caroline and Preston, under the light of crystal chandeliers, impossible to ignore. "Ready?" Caroline asked, positioning herself beside Jennifer. Jennifer thought of all the moments that had led her here, every swallowed humiliation, every time she made herself smaller to fit into Michael's vision, every cruel comment from Victoria that she silently absorbed. Years of being ordinary, invisible, ignored. And now, this moment, this choice, this final declaration that she had always been more than they allowed themselves to see. "I'm ready." The ballroom doors opened. The string quartet softened the music, creating a perfect, transitional moment. Caroline entered first, followed by Preston, and then Jennifer Morgan crossed the threshold. The hall was magnificent, with a high ceiling decorated with frescoes, crystal chandeliers capturing and multiplying the light of 1,000 candles. Tables arranged in semicircles around a central stage. 300 people in gala attire turned as if rehearsed, their attention magnetically drawn to the woman in emerald green who shone like a living jewel. Jennifer maintained an erect posture, her steps measured but confident as she walked down the central aisle. She could feel every gaze, hear whispers starting like waves. Who is she? What an incredible dress. Are those jewels real? Her eyes swept the room with apparent casualness, but they sought a specific target. Table 17. And there, finally, she saw them. Michael was half risen from his chair, his face pale under the golden light, eyes wide in shock that bordered on horror. Beside him, Victoria had paused mid-motion, a champagne flute halfway to her lips. The drink forgotten, as she watched Jennifer with an expression that mixed confusion and something dangerously close to fear. For a moment that seemed to last an eternity. Their gazes met across the crowded ballroom. Jennifer saw the exact second Michael recognized not only her, but what her presence here, dressed like this, walking towards the head table, truly meant. She saw understanding dawn, followed by panic, as he realized everything he thought he knew about his ordinary wife was a lie. Jennifer allowed herself the smallest of smiles, just a subtle curve of red lips, before looking away and continuing towards her seat. Behind her, she could hear the volume of whispers rising, speculation spreading like wildfire through a dry forest. Caroline pulled out a chair for her at the head table, positioned so Jennifer would face most of the ballroom, facing Michael and Victoria, although several tables now separated them. "Tonight promises to be memorable," Caroline murmured with a conspiratorial smile. Jennifer settled in, accepting a glass of champagne offered by an attentive waiter. The liquid glowed golden under the light of the chandeliers, bubbles rising in a lazy spiral. She raised the glass in a silent toast to herself, to her grandfather Arthur, to every moment of humiliation that had brought her here. Across the room, Michael had sat back down, but he suddenly seemed small, diminished. Victoria was speaking urgently in his ear, her gestures growing more agitated as, presumably, she demanded explanations he couldn't give. Preston Hart stood up, walking to the microphone on stage. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 23rd Annual Legacy Emmanuel Charity Ball. Tonight we celebrate not just generosity, but hope." The spotlights adjusted, capturing Preston, but also illuminating the head table, capturing Jennifer, making the diamonds at her neck explode into rainbows of refracted light, making the emeralds glow deep, like secrets finally revealed. And as Preston began to speak about the importance of the new pediatric wing, about children like Lily who deserved the best medicine could offer, Jennifer maintained a graceful posture, a serene smile. But inside, something fierce and triumphant roared. The ordinary wife had just become unforgettable. The ovation began as a whisper, spreading through the Benson Hotel ballroom like a gathering fire. Jennifer remained standing on stage, the microphone still vibrating with the last words of her speech, as 300 people rose from their chairs in a recognition that had seemed impossible just days ago. The diamonds at her neck caught the light from the chandeliers, transforming her into a living constellation. And for the first time in years, Jennifer Morgan did not shrink under the gazes fixed upon her. Her speech had been simple, yet profound. She spoke of Lily, the 6-year-old girl with leukemia who drew sunflowers in the waiting room. She spoke of losing her parents too young, of understanding the fear children felt in cold hospital corridors. She spoke of her grandfather Arthur, who had taught her that wealth without purpose was merely numbers on paper. And finally, her voice steady despite an internal tremor, she declared that the $2 million were just the beginning of her commitment to the new pediatric wing. Caroline Reeves embraced Jennifer as she descended from the stage, whispering with an emotional voice, "You just changed countless lives." But as she returned to the head table, Jennifer allowed herself a single glance in the direction of table 17. Michael was pale as marble under the golden lighting, his hands clenched into fists on the white linen tablecloth. Victoria had leaned so far into her chair that she seemed about to disappear under the table, the red dress she had flaunted on social media suddenly looking cheap under the crystal chandeliers. Around them, other guests at neighboring tables whispered with little discretion, pointing to Jennifer, then to Michael, connecting dots he had spent years ensuring would never touch. Dinner was served in waves of choreographed elegance. Filet mignon covered with a red wine reduction, grilled asparagus with a hint of Sicilian lemon, truffled potatoes that melted on the tongue. Jennifer ate mechanically, answering questions from the board members around her with a grace she was learning to feign until she genuinely felt it. Preston Hart recounted stories about previous charity campaigns, but his eyes sparkled with ill-concealed curiosity about the mysterious woman who had appeared out of nowhere with a fortune that rivaled anyone present. "You've kept this remarkably discreet," Preston commented as waiters cleared the main courses. "In my 20 years organizing this event, I've never seen such a significant donation from someone the philanthropic community was completely unaware of." Jennifer smiled, taking a sip of wine that likely cost more than her old monthly salary at the library. "My grandfather believed that true generosity doesn't need an audience, but he also taught me that sometimes visibility serves a greater purpose than modesty." Across the ballroom, Michael had stood up abruptly, almost knocking over his chair. Victoria grabbed his arm, trying to pull him back, but he shrugged her off with a brusque movement that drew even more unwanted attention. Jennifer watched as he walked between the tables, each step seeming to cost him physical effort, until he stopped at the edge of the head table's perimeter. Discreet security guards moved instinctively towards him, but Caroline made a subtle gesture for them to wait. "Jennifer," Michael's voice cracked on her name, sounding simultaneously furious and lost. "We need to talk. Now." The entire ballroom seemed to collectively hold its breath. Conversations died mid-sentence. Cutlery paused halfway to open mouths. This was the kind of drama that would turn a charity ball into gossip that would fuel Portland's social circles for months. Jennifer placed her napkin carefully on the table, her movements deliberately slow. She rose with a grace the Alexander McQueen dress facilitated, adjusting the emerald bracelet on her wrist before finally meeting Michael's gaze. "There's nothing for us to discuss that can't wait until Monday, Michael." "Monday?" He took half a step forward before remembering where he was. "You owe me explanations. All these years you let me think." "That I was ordinary?" Jennifer interrupted, her voice soft but carrying perfectly through the attentive silence of the ballroom. "That I was lucky you stayed with me out of pity. That I should be grateful for crumbs of attention between your visits to Victoria." The mistress's name dropped like a bomb into the elegant space. Audible gasps echoed from several tables. At table 17, Victoria had turned cherry red, the color clashing disastrously with her dress as she tried to become invisible. Michael opened and closed his mouth several times, like a fish out of water. You don't understand. I can explain. You don't need to. Jennifer picked up her clutch, nodding politely to Caroline and Preston. Please excuse me. I need some fresh air. She descended from the elevated platform where the head table was, walking past Michael without looking at him again, as if he were furniture she had ceased to notice. But Michael followed her, obviously unable to let things end on her terms. Jennifer, wait. At least let me understand. Where did this money come from? Why did you never tell me? She stopped at the French doors leading to the terrace, finally turning to face him. In the soft candlelight, Michael seemed smaller somehow, diminished. The man she had found impressive when they met, with his fitted suit and easy confidence, now looked like a fragile construction about to crumble. You never asked about me, Michael. You never wanted to know about my family, my history, my dreams. I was just a convenient wife when you needed someone respectable, and a punchline when you were with Victoria. Jennifer kept her voice low, aware of the curious gazes still fixed on them. My grandfather's inheritance came before we met. I kept it a secret because he asked me to find out who people really were before they knew about the money. And I failed the test. It wasn't a question, but a bitter acknowledgement. Spectacularly. Jennifer allowed herself a humorless half-smile. But it also freed me. Thank you for that at least. Victoria had joined them now, appearing beside Michael with an expression that mixed anger and something akin to panic. This is ridiculous. Michael, let's go. She's just making a scene. Jennifer studied her husband's mistress with a new perspective. Victoria Hayes, who had seemed so glamorous and unattainable through Instagram feeds, was in reality an ordinary woman dressed in expensive clothes, her beauty constructed through procedures and products that anyone with enough money could buy. There was nothing special about her beyond casual cruelty and an inflated sense of superiority. You called me an ordinary wife, Jennifer said, addressing Victoria for the first time. You mocked that Michael only stayed with me out of pity. You posted about it on social media, laughed with your friends about how pathetic I was. Victoria paled, her eyes widening as she realized Jennifer knew everything. That wasn't. But here's the truth, neither of you considered. Jennifer took a step closer, pleased to see Victoria instinctively recoil. Ordinary isn't an insult when you choose to live that way, when you decide that values matter more than appearances, when you understand that true worth has nothing to do with how much money you spend trying to impress strangers. Patrick Chen appeared discreetly beside Jennifer, gently touching her elbow. The car is waiting if you'd like to leave. You've done what you came here to do. Jennifer nodded, grateful for the graceful exit. She started to turn, then stopped, looking at Michael one last time. The divorce papers will be served on Monday. My lawyer will be in touch. And Michael? She paused, letting the moment stretch. You will have no claim to my inheritance. Every penny remains mine. But you can keep the apartment. Consider it compensation for all the time I wasted. The generosity embedded in the insult seemed to strike deeper than any direct cruelty could. Michael swayed slightly, leaning on Victoria, who now held him not with affection, but as if he were dead weight she was stuck carrying. Jennifer crossed the terrace to the side exit where the limousine awaited, Patrick walking beside her like a silent bodyguard. Behind them, she could hear the ballroom slowly returning to life, conversations resuming with increasing volume as everyone processed the drama they had just witnessed. Inside the limousine, Jennifer finally allowed her composed mask to crack. Not in tears, but in laughter that started low and grew until it filled the confined space of the car. Patrick smiled, understanding that it wasn't hysteria but pure liberation. He never imagined, Jennifer said between laughs. 5 years together and never, not for a second, did he consider that I could be more than he allowed me to be. People only see what they expect to see, Patrick replied philosophically. Michael expected mediocrity, so that's all he could recognize in you. Your grandfather knew that. That's why he asked you to wait. The limousine glided through the streets of Portland, passing crowded bars and restaurants where people lived ordinary and extraordinary lives in equal measure. Jennifer watched the city pass by, feeling the weight of years finally lifting from her shoulders. Her phone vibrated. A message from Marcus Webb. Social media feeds are exploding with photos of you at the ball. Mystery philanthropist in Alexander McQueen steals the show. You're officially viral. See you Monday? Jennifer typed a reply. Monday, ready to truly begin. Another message arrived, this time from Caroline Reeves. Thank you for tonight. You did more than donate money, you gave hope. And between us, that exit was perfect. Michael deserved every second. When the limousine stopped in front of the apartment she would soon leave behind, Patrick held the door for her. Your grandfather made me promise one thing before he died, he said, his voice uncommonly serious. That I would remind you when the time came that true worth never needs to prove anything to anyone. You proved it today, not because you needed to, but because you chose to. There's an important difference in that. Jennifer impulsively hugged Patrick, catching both of them by surprise. Thank you. For everything. For keeping secrets. For waiting. For believing I would get here eventually. Inside the empty apartment, Jennifer removed the dress with reverence, hanging it carefully. Her grandmother's jewels returned to their velvet box. Her shoes were placed side by side in the closet. Tomorrow, everything would be different. Monday, her new life would officially begin. But today, now, in this suspended moment between who she had been and who she was becoming, Jennifer simply stood at the window in her comfortable pajamas, holding a cup of tea, watching Portland sparkle under a finally clear sky. Her phone lit up one last time. A message from an unknown number, but she immediately recognized the tone as Michael's. Please. We can talk about this. We made mistakes, but it doesn't have to end like this. Jennifer deleted the message without replying, because Michael was wrong on so many levels that correcting him would take more energy than he deserved. It wasn't about mistakes. It was about conscious choices he had repeatedly made, about casual cruelty he had allowed, about the woman he had decided she was without ever asking who she truly could be. Outside, the city slept and woke in endless cycles. Ordinary people living extraordinary lives, extraordinary people hiding behind ordinary facades. And Jennifer Morgan, who had been called an ordinary wife for so long that she almost believed it, now knew the truth her grandfather had tried to teach her. There is no ordinary person. Only people who choose to diminish themselves to fit into others' expectations, and those brave enough to claim the space that was always rightfully theirs. Tomorrow she would look for a new apartment. Monday, she would start a job she had chosen for herself. And eventually, when she was ready, she would meet someone who would see her completely from day one. But today, in this perfect moment of transition, Jennifer was complete on her own. The ordinary wife was dead. The woman who remained was anything but ordinary, and finally, gloriously, free.